Hi there and welcome to this Python video. In this video we are going to talk about the very basics of Python. So just consider this as something you should start with if you're very new to Python. Now the very first thing which we are doing here is we're checking what version of Python is installed. So in a lot of systems, friends, there are two versions of Python which are installed. So in order to use Python 3, we really need to explicitly specify the version number here, as I have done. Now, as I can see that Python version 3.7.6 is installed in the system. Now in this video we are going to check whether Python is installed as a first step, and that is what we just did. So yes, just check your version, and the one which we are going to talk about is this, that is Python 3. Now Python 3 is the significant number here. 7 or 6, they are not important. You could be having 3.8 also, or anything 3.5 to 3.8, any of these will work, but 3 is the most important number. So now whenever working with Python, the very first thing which we should try to look at is the interpreter. Now in order to invoke the Python interpreter, what we need to do is we need to type Python 3 and then simply press enter. Now we have entered the interpreter mode. Python is an interpreted language, which means whatever input we give here in the interpreter, it is interpreted by the Python interpreter and the result is accordingly produced. So let's see some of the basic things in Python. Now I'm doing some variable assignment. Now I have simply written x equals 12. Now what this means is that I don't need to specify whether x is going to be an int or a float or a string like many other languages, mostly the statically typed languages. Now Python is a dynamically typed language, which means that it is automatically inferred by the interpreter that what is the type of x here. Now if I simply type, let's say, print x, I will see the value of x being printed. Now print is the Python function which we can use to print your data on the console. When I am in the interpreter mode, I can actually simply type x as well, but when I'll be writing some code in a file, then I will have to use this function, that is print. Now what I can do is I can also change the type of x at the runtime. So I can say x equals 12 like this also. So Python won't complain about the type of this variable x, and yeah, I can keep on changing this. Now let's have another variable, let's say y equals 23. Now I can use this interpreter as a simple calculator. Let's try to perform some mathematical calculations or mathematical functions here. Now first of all, addition, I can write x plus y, and now when I print addition, I get the addition of these two variables, that is x and y. Let's perform some other operations. Let's perform subtraction. So x minus y, sorry for that, x minus y, and I get the result of subtraction here. And let's move ahead in a similar fashion, x star y, and yes, we have the results for that. Now moving onwards, what we can do is we can straight away have the answers. We can straight away evaluate the expressions. So let's try something like this, 4 star star 2. Now what is z here? Z becomes 16, so which means that this is performing a kind of exponentiation, which is 4 raised to the power 2. And the other operation which we are left with is now division. Let's do division also, 10 divided by 5. Now if I said div, okay, now there's one thing to note here, that in Python the result of division is a float. So we can see that this is 2.0. Okay, so the next thing which we are going to do here is we have performed a lot of operations. The next one would be the remainder operation. So rem is equal to 10%, let's say 2. What do I get? I get 0. Great. So these are some of the mathematical calculations which I just performed, and well, there is nothing stopping me from performing more complex operations, I can actually import modules also in the interpreter itself. So let's try to perform that. Let's say import time, and similarly I can import, say, date time for performing the operations which are related to these modules. So just like in other languages, like in C, we include functions from different other libraries or different other modules. Similarly, in Python, we use the import statement to import functionality from other modules. So this was some basic knowledge around the Python interpreter. Now, if I want to exit from this interpreter, I'll simply use the exit function and I come out of this function. So this is one of the ways of writing your code. So whenever you're, let's say, debugging some Python script, interpreter can be a very good help. You can simply test different things, you can experiment with different things, and then whatever works, you can write that in your script. Now let's move to the next thing. Let's write a very basic, or the beginner, the hello world.py. Okay, so before I write any code, the very first thing which you can observe here is that hash is used to make comments in Python. So whenever you have to make any comments in this language, just start that statement with a hash. Well, as we already saw in the interpreter, in order to print anything to the console, what we have to do is we have to just use the print function, and I'll just type hello world. Now the Python files are usually saved by using a .py extension. This extension tells us that this is going to be a Python source code file. Now in order to run this file, what I need to do is, let's move to this directory basics, and I will type python hello world.py. Okay, so this prints hello world on the screen. So this is the very first thing which we usually do in any programming language. Now let's try another thing, that is user input.py. Let's move it here in the basics itself. Yeah. Now how do I take an input from the user? Well, first of all, I need a variable to store the user input. So I'm naming that variable as user input, and input is the function which we can use. So let's say type your name. Now what I can do is I can simply print back hi, and then I can concatenate the name which I just got. Welcome to the Python tutorial. Let's say welcome to Python tutorial. So I will simply save this program, and then I'll go to the console. Now let's try to run this program, that is user input.py. Now they're saying the type your name, let's say I type 404. Okay, it's saying that name 404 is not defined. Let's try to add the str function here. Oh, just a minute, I made a mistake about which I actually talked about in the beginning of the tutorial. So what happened here is that when I used simple Python without appending the 3 at the end, it actually considered this to be a Python 2 source file, and that was the mistake which happened here. So let's try to run it with Python 3 now. Okay, so let's add 404. Yeah, hi 404, welcome to Python tutorial. Now let's add some spaces here just to make it a bit more readable. Now if I go again, let's type 404. Yeah, so hi 404, welcome to Python tutorial. Well, similarly you can take different inputs from the user. So I think that's it for this basics video. We covered how to check what version of Python is installed in our system. Then we looked at how to perform some basic mathematical calculations using the Python interpreter. And then we wrote the very basic Python scripts. The first one was like how to print something on the screen or the console, that is the standard output, and then how to take user input. So I hope you liked this video. Thank you so much, and we will keep coming back with more Python videos.